Okay, good evening. It is October 17th, 2023 at 6 o'clock. I'd like to open the select board meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order and a roll call, please.
Teresa A. Moss present.
And Chaz Sexton Duranian present. Joe is not present here and it is an excused absence. 1.2, Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As always, I'd like to thank those in service and those who have served and those first responders. 1.3, this meeting is being recorded and we have opted not to go live right now on Channel 9. We've had an incident last meeting and we will be having a discussion tonight in regards to that. After the meeting will be posted to YouTube as usual though. 1.4, Chairman's additions and deletions. I would like to add 3.6. This is an appointment for a custodian for the COA. And do you have anything else, Teresa, to add?
I do not have anything.
Okay. 1.5, review and approve the meeting minutes for 8/22. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes for 8/22/23.
So moved.
And second, any discussion? I didn't see anything.
No,
Did
I
you
read
see?
those when I didn't say
Okay, I
anything.
think they're
They look
good. So we're all set, Sabrina, on that. So all those in favor?
Teresa A. Moss, yes.
Chaz Sexton Duranian, yes. 1.5, I'm sorry, 1.6. We have two corrections. One correction was we inadvertently did an appointment last time. This was for Natalie Cobb for the Council on Aging. That went through. It shouldn't have gone through at that particular time, so we're not going to act upon that. Natalie did not go and get appointed at that particular time. And we also made a motion for the bylaw committee. I said bylaw committee, it should be bylaw review committee. So Eric, should we make a motion and do it formally or how?
I think we could that's just a clerical error. It's in the charter as bylaw review committee. So
Right. Okay.
we can
So
just
that's
note that was intended to be the bylaw
right.
review
It was
committee.
intended for bylaw review committee and I just said bylaw committee in my motion. So I just wanted to be very clear about that. Appointments and hearings, 2.1, application for a Christmas tree permit by the Lions Club. This is for Christmas trees on the town common. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the application for Christmas tree permit by the Lions Club to sell Christmas trees at the town common.
So moved.
And I'll second that. Any discussion? I think we're good with that. All those in favor?
Teresa A. Moss, yes.
Chaz Sexton Duranian, yes. So 6:04, so we can jump over the appointments for now. We'll go down to 3.1. I'll entertain a motion to appoint Teresa A. Morse to Capital Planning Committee effective 6/30/2023 for a term to expire 6/30/2026.
So moved.
And I'll second. Any discussion on that? Does that mean you're improving yourself?
I don't know what, yeah, I guess it's 3 years. That's where you come up with that. Nope, no discussion.
All those in favor?
Teresa A. Moss, yes.
Chaz Sexton Duranian, yes. 3.2, I'll entertain a motion to appoint Jeannie Urda as Program Coordinator Outreach for the Council on Aging effective 10/17/2023 with a start date of 11/1/23.
So moved.
And I'll second that. Any discussion?
Is there a termination date on that?
No, it's just it's a
Okay.
job,
It's a
so
position, yeah,
Okay.
so.
hopefully it won't be terminated for a long time.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I thought it was a committee, so.
Um, all those in favor?
Teresa Marsh, yes?
Chad Sexton Duranian, yes. 3.3, I'll entertain a motion to appoint Gail Gray as chief for the Council on Aging effective 10/17/2023 with a start date of 11/1/23.
I just want to correct this, chef,
Sure. Chef?
not chief.
I said chief. Well, I can't.
We don't want Elise
I
to
can't
think,
promote her.
we don't want Elise to think she's getting appointed over Elise.
Sorry about that. Chief Chef. How's that?
There you go.
Did you,
So moved?
and I'll second that. Any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Teresa Marsh, yes?
Chad Sexton Duranian, yes. 3.4, I'll entertain a motion to appoint Christopher Regan from per diem firefighter EMT advanced to full-time firefighter EMT advanced to the fire department effective 10/17/23 with a start date of 10/29/23.
So moved?
And I'll second that. Do you remember seeing something here from the chief? Yes. Any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Teresa Marsh, yes?
Chad Sexton Duranian, yes. 2.5, I'll entertain a motion to appoint Stephen Monroe as heavy equipment operator to the highway department effective 10/17/23 with a start date of 11/6/2023.
So moved?
And I'll second that. And I did get something here from the highway superintendent, so we're all set. Any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Teresa Marsh, yes?
Chad Sexton Duranian, yes.
Then you added 3.6.
And we added 3.6. Your name written all over it. 3.6. So at their meeting on October 4th, the Council on Aging today voted unanimously to approve the recommendation for the appointment and hire of Joshua Gibbs as custodian for the Council on Aging and Library. So I will entertain a motion to approve Joshua Gibbs as custodian for the Council on Aging and Library effective today,
Effective today, 10/17,
10/17.
to
So
start
moved?
November 1st.
To start November 1st.
So moved?
And I'll second that. Any discussion?
Just wanted to point out that this is the position that was approved with ARPA funds by the board a little while ago.
2 meetings ago?
Oh, much longer than
Much longer than
that. Yeah, we've been looking for a while, yeah.
Okay. All those in favor?
Teresa Marsh, yes?
Chad Sexton Duranian, yes. All right, well, thank you all. Teresa,
Thank you so much.
you're welcome.
Thanks, Elise.
Thanks.
Jeannie, Gail, Christopher, Stephen, and Joshua, welcome.
Welcome.
We can jump down to 4.1, discussion of budget message to department heads.
So I gave you a printed out copy of the draft department head budget message. Very similar to, the proposed message is very similar to what it's been in the last couple of years, which is to try to keep your non-salary items level funded. I picked a couple of dates. So we're gonna have the budget request due on January 8th. I tentatively, in this, scheduled our Saturday special for March 9th.
Okay.
Saturday, March 9th, 2024. This is a kind of a base level requests, salary and wages per the union contract, for the unions that have been settled. So that's gonna, hopefully by the time this actually the rubber hits the road here, we'll settle wages with all of the unions for next fiscal year. It's gonna be a challenging budget process.
It will, this year will.
At this point in time, we've had 3 meetings with the school department regarding the budget process. I feel like they've been productive in that we are talking about the underlying issues and trying to come to a kind of a greater understanding of where the pressure points are for both of the towns and the schools. They are, as I'm sure folks are aware, North Middlesex has multiple collective bargaining agreements coming up this year, including the teachers, which is generally speaking the driving collective bargaining agreement for their operation. There have been some precedents set in other districts in the state regarding the kind of increases that teachers are going to come and ask, and Mass Teachers Association is asking for the same or similar increases in all of the districts that are up for negotiation this year. So that's one of the things that they're challenged with. As the board knows, we talked about it and the board approved. I am actually going to be working with the school committee on their negotiation with the teachers. At least that has been forwarded to the schools, and they are supposed to be discussing my exact role on Thursday as kind of the representative for the towns in that budget negotiation, in that collective bargaining negotiation. So
I just think that the most important thing is that we are opening up the lines of communication well before the budget, so there's no last minute, pushing and shoving. I think this is the way that we should have been going all along, and I'm very happy for it. Thank you for helping us out with that effort.
yes.
I think it's much more than the school committee, because I do feel that all departments are more collaborative now. We've gotten a lot of feedback from the police and the fire on what their plans are coming into the budget season, so we have a better idea of what to expect instead of having the big surprise.
Yes.
I think part of it has to do with the way you're taking control of things and doing it, and I want to thank you for that. The second thing is that we're all in this together, and there's no separate silos anymore, and I really think that that's going to improve the budget process. It's going to be painful, I agree, but I think it's going to be a lot more, everybody is going to be understanding, and the more information that we can get out to our townspeople so that they know what we're going through with the process, so it doesn't appear so secretive, which it really isn't. But I just think that we need to be a little more open with what we're doing.
I agree. I mean, the numbers are a little bit challenging from the school side. We, at the end of the last budget cycle, were probably in the best situation of all 3 towns for a couple of different reasons. Number one, because our percentage of students at North Middlesex went down. Our percentage of the assessment dropped, whereas Pepperell's percentage went up. As I'm sure folks know, both Pepperell and Ashby ended up having to fund their budget, including, the schools using their free cash. There was an override that was proposed in Pepperell that did not pass. And Ashby, I don't even think proposed an override. So those 2 municipalities are starting out with a structural deficit of the amount of free cash that they used to fund the budget last year. So we're not in that dire a situation, but we're still, it's still going to be challenging for us to meet the needs of the town and the minimum requirements from the school district without an override.
You have to
That's,
throw that out there. It's a tightrope, and we, again, all we can do is keep the communication open, so there's no surprises, I think that's the best that we can do.
So we do anticipate that the schools are going to be rolling out some informational pieces about, their budgeting process to the entire community in a way that I don't think they've done in the past. I think they're going to have they're discussing having a full budget website that's just dedicated to the North Middlesex budget. That I think both the schools and all of the towns are going to be having links on our web pages and making available to the public things to talk about the school budget, because the reality is that school budget drives a significant portion of the town's budget,
Right.
And increases the school budget have a disproportionate effect on the town's budget, because they, like us, their increases from the state do not match the increases that they're in the cost of services. So just like we can't rely on increases in state funding to keep up with the increases in cost of, office supplies and healthcare, the schools are in the same situation. So it's important for everybody to know that, that's kind of how we're coming into. We're coming into a budget cycle where we're going to have a full year of relatively high inflation. The last budget cycle that had just, we had a few months of it, but it wasn't a full year. Now it's, we're going to have a budget cycle where we're dealing with a full year of inflation. And so those are have real effects on our budget. So, I want to ask the department heads to tighten their belts as much as possible. We will be kind of keeping an eye. I'm working with the town accountant's office to keep an eye on budget expenditures and make sure that we're not kind of spending just to spend at the end of the year, so we can get an accurate idea of what things are doing. And I think there's some things that are on the table for the board, including the discussion of the building assessment, that I think will be able to kind of more realistically help shape our budget process going forward. But it doesn't mean it's not going to be challenging.
Right. I mean, there's a reality portion of it that, we know what we would like to do.
Sure.
But there's the real part of the money's not in the account.
Right.
So,
Right.
Well, good.
So my plan would be to send this out. So last year we sent this out at the beginning of December. I'd like to send this out at the beginning of November this year, just to give everybody kind of a little bit more heads up and a little more time to start working on their budget and come to me if they have any questions or concerns. And then kind of we'll see where it shakes out in January.
I'm all for that.
Okay.
It's October and we're talking budget. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, this is a year where I think we need to be on top of it. We've talked about it. We need to be, the sooner we're on top of it, the sooner we can get the appropriate message out to the residents. I want to just kind of upfront just say that the acting town administrator in Ashby, Mike, who's the fire chief, has been really collaborative. Andrew McLean in Pepperell has been really collaborative, and we've actually been working well with Nancy and Brad over at the schools to try and at least get ourselves in the same room often and have these conversations and provide each other as much kind of basic raw data as we can. So I already have a kind of a preliminary budget analysis done that looks at how much we can increase taxes with under 2.5%, what our expected new growth is, how all those factors come out to what our expected amount of budget would be. So we're in a place where we can take the numbers and put them in and see where that puts us at the end of the day.
Good. All righty. Anything from you, Teresa?
Nothing. Chad? No.
4.2, discussion of bids for building condition assessment. I'm gonna let you talk.
Well, no, I mean,
I am very happy with what was submitted here.
yeah, so as you saw in the SharePoint, and as we discussed, we put out to bid an ARPA project, which I think was an excellent use of ARPA funds to do a building assessment, to get an outside vendor in, to do a building assessment of all the town's buildings and give us a maintenance plan and kind of a 5-year plan for any kind of capital improvements that we need to have. And I think this is one of the main things that I think will help us drive the budget, specifically for kind of maintenance and repair of these buildings. And we'll really know what things that happen that are emergencies and what things that happen that it's in the assessment, we should know that this is going to happen.
And how to budget for it.
Yeah, and we'll have to, I think it'll help the facilities department and the board budget for these buildings much more effectively. So this was out to bid for a few weeks. While we did only get one proposal, the proposal we got, I think, is a really quality proposal. The vendors had a lot of experience with doing these sort of assessments for municipalities. Done a lot of buildings. If you read the specs that they sent over, they did a lot of buildings. And the bonus is it came out at almost $10,000 under what we had set aside for this assessment. So my recommendation to the board would be that we have a vote to approve and accept this building assessment and authorize me to sign a contract with this vendor to perform it as soon as possible.
Yeah, the only question, this is all active buildings, right? We're not including like having somebody look at the hot library?
Correct.
Or anything like that?
Correct. No. Yeah.
Is that something we may be able to do down the road, or?
We got RFPs out for
Yeah,
the library and central.
So we
Service.
didn't get any
I didn't
responses for the library.
We didn't get anything from the library.
So we
yet,
we
so
already
I'm wondering
approved
if
the
you could-
central fire station and the harbor fire station. But we didn't do anything for the library. And I can certainly, if at the time when we were discussing this, those RFPs were still out. So we weren't sure whether we were going to get responses back or not. So those kind of things kind of cross, but we could do that. I mean, my concern about the Hart Library at the time when we did this was I didn't want to throw something into the mix that was going to increase the price a lot. Because it's not an active building, and my main concerns were active buildings to make sure that those are being brought up to. But given the amount, the fact that we have, there's $10,000 left, we could certainly ask the vendor how much it would cost to
assess that as well.
Yeah, I'd like that if we could.
if it was, consistent with their per building bids that they put in that spec, which is like $3,000 something dollars.
Yeah, so that would fit into.
Then we could do that as a separate, a separate
I don't have an issue with
request.
that.
Thank you.
And we wouldn't have to get 3 quotes because it's under 10,000.
Yeah.
So, that would, that was,
So we could ask them. No, I think that's a great idea. I was trying to look for the number. Of course, when you want to find it.
yeah, it's 3,000, 3,300 and something. Yeah, something like that.
Which I thought was very reasonable in their scope of work in each building. I found that you can tell by the way this is written that they've done it before, so
Right,
it's like from the ground up. They're looking at everything, including shingles and roof attachments, which I would assume is antennas.
Yeah, and everything up there, yeah.
No, I was very pleased with it. It's just, I knew I had asked about, and we hadn't got anything on the hot. So I was wondering if we had asked him for the.
Yeah, no,
Yes, we did.
the goal for the RFP was just for active buildings, so we could do a separate request, a separate procurement. And I can call this vendor, since they're already gonna be out here, to see if they would be willing to add the Hart Library or to do a separate, a building assessment for the Hart Library as it's non-active building, so it'd be a little different, but I can certainly ask.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
So we just need a motion to,
Motion to approve the,
approve the bid.
yes, approve the bid from, what was their name again? Forgot it.
Bureau Veritas.
Yeah.
Veritas.
Bureau Veritas.
Okay, so
And authorize me to sign the contract.
so I'll entertain a motion to approve the bid from Bureau Veritas for the building condition assessment, and authorize Eric to sign a contract with them with a provision to see if they can add the art library to,
So moved.
and I'll second that. Any further comment? No? All those in favor?
Teresa A. Marsh, yes?
Chad Sexton Duranian, yes. Very happy about that.
I don't think we have time for 4.3.
Yeah, I don't. I don't think so
But
either.
we might be able to do, 4.4, 4.5, and 4.6 should just be motions and seconds and approvals. I don't think there's gonna be any discussion on those.
Okay, yeah, we can do all those real quick.
Yeah.
So we'll do 4.4. I'll entertain a motion to approve and sign out of session all 2024 renewals for class 1, 2, and 3 licenses, contingent upon receipt of the required documentation and payment.
So moved.
Second, any further discussion? And these will all be in the minutes as far as each one of them outlined, so all those in favor?
Teresa A. Marsh, yes?
Chad Sexton Duranian, yes. I'll entertain a motion to approve and assign out of session all 2024 renewals for common vicular licenses, contingent upon receipt of required documentation and payment.
So moved.
Second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Teresa A. Marsh, yes?
Chad Sexton Duranian, yes. 4.6, I'll entertain a motion to approve and sign out of session all 2024 renewals for entertainment licenses, contingent upon receipt of required documentation and payment.
So moved.
And I'll second that. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Teresa A. Marsh, yes?
Chad Sexton Duranian, yes. Which brings us up to 6:30. 2.2. Discussion with TCAM regarding the operation of Zoom. Dave, would you like to join us up on that?
Come on down.
Yeah,
To sit at the grown-ups.
come to the big table.
Today. All right, the reason why I asked Dave to come today is the last meeting that we had been Zoom bombed. And this was the second time the selectmen have been Zoom bombed, and other committees have been Zoom bombed in the past. So I wanted to have a discussion with Dave in regards to what actions, if we need to take actions, or what are our options available moving forward so that we can protect integrity and the character of the meetings. So what say you, Dave? What are we talking about?
Okay, well, first, before I get into the meat of the issue, as soon as that happened last time, the next morning I called Pepperell, who we work closely with, and asked them, what do they do? Do they have any extra security in place? How do they try and prevent that from happening? Especially going out live over the air.
Mhm.
And they said they don't do anything live over the air. They record their meetings and they get them out on their video on demand system as soon as possible, sometimes within a matter of minutes, sometimes within 24 to 48 hours, which is the functional equivalent of what we're doing by posting things on YouTube. We don't have our own video on demand system. We can get one, but for now it appears to be working fine with the YouTube methodology. Talking to the guys from Pepperell, they basically said there's almost nothing you can do about it. Did some searching on the Zoom website, and they pretty much admit there's almost nothing you can do about it. There are some things that we can look at to try and mitigate, but just like the rest of the real world, the hackers are always one step ahead of the good guys in trying to make things happen. Just so you know, I implemented immediately without talking to any of you guys. Nothing's live has been going out from Townsend's meetings since that bombing incident. And we want to get back up on the air live because there's a lot of people over at the senior housing that can't get out, can't attend in person. They don't have the computer technology or skills necessary, so they need to see it on TV. So my goal is to try and get the live TV happening again as soon as possible. What I looked into, and my first suggestion, what I mentioned, was turning the meetings into webinars, which is basically a one-way street. Zoom lets you set up a webinar session where there's a panel of presenters that are the only ones that have access to the Zoom application. Everybody else can log into a link and they can view. That's all they can do. They can hear what's going on, they can see what's going on, but they have no way of entering into the webinar. So it's more or less like a one-way presentation.
Even if they wanted to talk, there's.
They could, well, there's a chat feature that you can enable for a webinar. All it does is let you type in a short text message, just like texting on your phone, which the panelist presenters don't have to show on the screen. So if somebody was typing something foul, it won't get out in front of anybody's eyes. You won't hear it, etc. The research that I did set me back a little bit on my heels. If we were to decide, the town and TCAM were to decide to go with a webinar model for our meetings, the module to do webinars costs $690 a year, which isn't a huge amount, but for just covering our local government meetings, come on.
It's not justified, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a necessity, it's a necessity, but I don't feel it's a necessity at this point. But the upside to doing it as a webinar, in order to be able to view and hear the webinar as it's going on, you need to sign up for it. Which for a lot of hackers, that's like, yeah, okay, I'm not going to deal with that, because you have to give a valid name, a valid email address in order for the Zoom system to be able to communicate with the computer you're going to be watching on, so it can verify / authenticate that you are the person that requested the link and we're delivering that link to you, which causes hackers to back off on that a little bit. While it's not 100% foolproof, it would allow the Zoom people to be able to clearly identify what computer something came from.
And log your IP and all of that stuff.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
But that's not foolproof, because you can buy a VPN product
Right.
that disguises your IP address. But from what the Zoom people say, it's a deterrent for the less determined hackers and spammers that are out there, because you have to give, this is where it gets tricky. The email address that you have to give to Zoom in order for them to send you the registration page, and then you can click on it to get the link, has to go through a legitimate email address. So you can't just make up one, at the spur of the moment, because Gmail or any of the other email, Google Mail, etc., your name is on file at that company to validate your email address. And if you give that email address to Zoom and then pull some crap, Zoom can contact Google or whoever your email provider is, and basically they can track you down. So that's one advantage to the webinar. And webinars require pre-registration for anybody that's going to attend. We would have to set it up. Everybody that they consider a panelist, the presenters, the people that are conducting the meeting, or somebody that you're inviting to give, like the young lady that was giving the CEA presentation last time, they would all have to be pre-registered, listed, and put into the Zoom application. Basically, they're vetted, so they're in, there's no question. Anybody else that tries to log into the link that isn't pre-registered hits a brick wall, you're not getting in. So, second attempt or a second option that we could look at is just locking down regular Zoom meetings by doing the same kind of thing. You do pre-registration, which would mean every board member in town, anybody that's got an email address that usually has to attend meetings, Sabrina, you, me, etc., we would all have to be pre-listed in the Zoom application. And then when you log in to attend the meeting, you would get a request back, prove it's you. You do the necessary thing, and then you get the link to log in. Both of these options involving pre-registration, and you might know, if not, we'll need to talk to town council about it, is does that fly in the face of the state open meeting law saying that anybody can attend a public meeting and you don't need to identify yourself?
Yeah, that's the part that you're allowed to attend. You're allowed, anyone's allowed to attend a public meeting, and you do not have to identify yourself. And so that is the part that makes me nervous about doing some sort of pre-registration piece.
Yeah, well, that's, maybe we can get, well, my thought on that is yes, I understand that everybody has the right to attend an open meeting, and we're not saying you can't attend. We're just saying you have to sign up to attend.
Yeah, and
But the law doesn't say that.
yeah, if you're allowed to attend a meeting anonymously under the law, how can we make someone sign? That's my concern.
Yeah.
And I guess my other question would be, have we had any other incidents since? So it's been 2 weeks since the last Board of Selectmen meeting where this happened.
Nothing with any of the other meetings. And to reference what Chaz said at the beginning, the Board of Selectmen have been bombed twice. Twice within this calendar year, I think it was. Okay. And 2 other instances happened before, but I think one of them was back in like 2020 and the other one was back in 2019. And I don't even know if they were the selectmen's balls. I just had somebody tell me that there were 2 other
that I was on.
instances.
This is bombing Chaz.
They're bombing Chaz, and I'm telling you.
I just wonder whether or not it makes sense to, at least for the time being, go back to what we were doing and stream it live and just make sure that, the TCAM representative who's there is being very diligent about watching and shutting down people the minute something inappropriate happens.
Yeah.
I got just a couple questions. First of all, is there a simple way to do a 5-minute delay?
Well, that was a possibility that I popped into my head earlier today that I'll have to investigate. I imagine there's got to be something you can do with the television broadcast, because that's a standard operating
5-second dump,
procedure. 5, 10, 15, depending.
Right.
If you're hosting some comedian on your talk show that's notorious for language, they got a 30-second delay. So, but yeah, I'll have to research that. That wouldn't be part of the Zoom stuff.
Okay.
That would have to be the actual broadcast equipment.
Right, because I would hate to lose, I know people, it surprises me, but I know people do watch it.
Oh, yeah,
and I
there's a lot of people
hate
watch
for
it
them
live.
to lose it. When I think a delay would answer the concern of it going out live. I think we could fix it with that. The second question, we keep talking about Zoom and limits that we have in Zoom. Other products out there like Microsoft Teams and other things, do they have the same limits, or is there anything we can get within that might
I'll
help?
have to investigate, but I suspect that a lot of these products that do teleconferencing are all pretty much built the same way. And
Mhm.
behind the scenes, they're making sausage in the other room
Yeah.
with the server-to-server connections and however they make the magic happen. So it may look different, it may be implemented slightly different, but I think all of these companies have the same flaw. And not really a flaw, but the same possible way to bomb a meeting like that exists. So,
Is it possible to set up the Zoom meeting such that in order for someone to unmute and show their camera, it has to be authorized by the moderator?
well, and that's,
Because, and I'm not saying that would fix the question, but at least if somebody raised their hand
Yeah.
and we said, okay, you can let Joe Smith speak, then there would be a TCAM person who's watching, and if that person did something immediately, they would just dump them, just like immediately dump them. I don't know, is that, it wouldn't prevent it, but it like, at least,
we could react to it quicker.
because you're letting that person speak right then, and you're knowing that I'm letting a person speak and I have to watch right then.
It's only the regular like this where it's open, and it's the webinar format. Those are the two formats that I know of. Now, I work on Teams, GoTo meetings.
They all have the same
I've-
sort of
I've-
restrictions, I think.
With my work, I do a lot with all of the other platforms. They're all, like you said, essentially the same,
Okay,
and they have their limitations.
Yeah.
Each one of them has their own limitations,
Well, the thing is to harken back to what Eric was kind of touched on a second ago. The thing is there's settings in both the town and TCAM. We have two accounts. The town has a Zoom account, TCAM has their own. There's a setting in there where you can go in and tell it nobody can screen share. So that way, like when people ask Hartley, can you, activate screen share for me? Apparently, I shouldn't even say it out loud, but that's a flaw where if Hartley allows one person to screen share, apparently the Zoom system opens up to allow anybody that's in the meeting
Yeah,
to screen
it
share.
wasn't, that person who zoomed on was not sharing a screen.
What they did was in their,
Their
how you
profile
put
picture,
your profile
basically.
picture in, they were putting
It was a
the
GIF of,
the GoBot in there so
Yeah.
that it was playing through there.
yeah, so the minute their profile page, like it wasn't even a camera, it was just their profile picture had that
Yeah,
clip
a loop,
running, a
like
loop
a
clip.
GIF file.
Yeah, and so the only way I feel like that, yeah, I mean,
But see, again, that harkens back to the same point that quite a while ago, I went in and I deactivated almost everything, leaving only the minimal things active that you can use. So apparently that's a shortcoming that the Zoom people aren't aware of. And if that's the case, then just like what Pepper said, there's absolutely no way to prevent it except not letting them in the meeting at all.
I guess the part of me just feels like, given the demographic in Townsend. I feel like, should we err on the side of, we want to make it as accessible as possible and let the people who need to watch it live. And that may mean that sometimes we have to be really quick on the dump and something might happen.
Yeah.
I don't know. And like, we just have to live with that risk and just, we just have to remind you and your staff to be like really diligent to keeping an eye on it. And
Well, I'll definitely look into like what Teresa mentioned about if there's 5 second, 15 second, half hour delay or something we can do
Yeah.
and still broadcast live. I believe that it sounds like we should be able to.
Yeah.
I just gotta find out how to implement it if it is available,
Yeah.
and we'll do that.
And how to trigger it when.
And the question would be setting up a process to what to do when it gets triggered,
when it
like,
happens,
Yeah.
because the only way that works is if you cut out the live feed, and then what? Like, because you're cutting out the live feed in the middle of a public meeting. That's, would have to have a process to what that means. When you have to cut out the live feed, everybody in the meeting just stops talking, and until TCAM says it's dumped,
Yeah,
we're
it's
back
clear.
live again. Yeah, I don't know, like, we just have to think about what the process would be and set that up.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it feels like this is the board that has been targeted. Luckily, no one else
Well-
has, and so it would be more challenging, I think, with other boards, because a lot of them are still operating half Zoom. So they've got like, their quorum is made up.
Yeah, the ZBA for one here in Townsend meets almost exclusively virtually,
Yeah.
so everybody in it. But I was just gonna say something you said again, flew right out of my brain.
Sorry.
No, not your fault. It'll come back to me, and middle of the night, I'll wake up and go, oh, that was it. But, yeah, I mean, unfortunately, what it boils down to is, and the guys from Pepperell have many more years' experience than we do, that it's almost impossible to prevent it. You can only react to it once it's happening.
Yeah, we're doing a due diligence to look to try to remedy a situation that we have absolutely no control over.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Well-
how I see it.
One thing that Pepperell did say is once they stopped broadcasting live, they basically haven't had an instance of that happen pretty much at all. Because the spammer, hacker, idiot, whoever it is that's doing it, they're not getting the glory.
Yeah, they're looking for an
being able to
instant
Put it out
thing.
online.
Yeah.
Psychologists say the motivation behind the act.
But one other thing to let you know about, and this is where, depending on what we decide on, I may have to use my authority vested in me by the FCC to override a decision because, again, Pepperell said the government isn't going to come down on us for something like that. We're not intentionally broadcasting,
Right.
Objectionable material, but if it's something that keeps happening,
Yeah.
Comcast themselves could get involved and be upset by it and look, you guys just don't know what you're doing.
Well, could we also put a disclaimer on the agenda?
This is for adult use only.
No, just say that, you know, that
PG-13.
Yeah.
this may happen and we're not.
Well, I'd rather,
responsible for it.
I guess part of me is just like, even that to me feels like we're giving too much oxygen to the
Yeah.
people who are trying to
Oh,
do this.
that's the thing I was remembering. The other thing that Zoom more or less said to me is this may not even be somebody local. Nobody may be targeting us directly. I guess the term for it is scraping the internet. There's hackers out there that are bored. It could be some guy sitting in Antarctica for all we know. Activates his bot and it goes out and looks on the internet and tries to find non-secure connections to meetings like this in order to just do like what we saw happen. They don't even care about us personally. It's just like, I found a link, that'll wake them up, have a nice day, and then they're on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's also that particular meeting was heavily advertised because of the
Public hearing.
the public hearing, so.
Yeah, so, and again, it may not be anybody here in town, it may not be anybody in Mass, could be anybody anywhere, so all you can do is be paranoid. Is it my neighbor doing it or the guy in Afghanistan? And you'll drive yourself nuts trying to speculate on that.
Well, the fact that, in my opinion, the fact that nobody's tried in the last 2 weeks on any of the other publicly available Zoom links that we posted, including tonight's, indicates to me that it was
Just a one-time.
A one-time, right? Because why would you not keep trying it if you got
Yeah,
your kicks out
most
of doing
likely
it
it
the
had
first
to
time?
do with the public meeting.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing
So,
is we should just be cautious, we'll make sure that, your staff is diligent on if this does happen again, that they can be shut down.
Yeah.
If you can look into your delay, if we can do a delay, and we can go live starting on the next meeting, I'm okay with that. You're okay with that, Teresa? Okay.
Okay, yeah, did you have any other questions?
No.
Okay,
That was it.
Thank you very much,
nothing
David.
else?
Yeah, I do. Thank you very much for your time and thanks for your, research and
No problem. I will continue to look into it and see what else we can find and figure out.
sounds good. Thank you, sir.
Great.
Okay, have a good night, everyone.
Yep, you too.
Can I just ask
Sure.
you one more question on this?
Yeah,
Could we maybe take a survey and see if anybody is watching it live, or is YouTube enough? Is there a way for us to figure that out? Do we have, like,
I'd be worried that the people who are watching it live would not respond to a survey that we put. Because they're
Do we
watching it
know-
live, because they're
do we
watching.
have a count? Do we
cable
know
access.
how many people are watching it
Well-
live?
We would have to contact Comcast, and from what I understand, they don't usually make that information publicly available.
if
Alright.
if we actually owned the channel, I mean, this is the, PEG access, which is, you know, a video gift to the town, so to speak, for educational and educational and entertainment
Public educational government.
in government. So if we were paying for it, then yes, we would have probably a wealth of information, how many people at what time were watching it. But because we're not, and they're basically giving the service for free, we're not privy to those particular.
We can always
stats.
ask them in the next contract negotiation to provide us that
Well, that's
information.
kind of what,
But then does really,
gonna say it off
if
camera,
somebody
but-
puts it on in the living room at
I wouldn't be worried about
Atwood
Comcast
Acres, it could be 20 people watching it on one television, that's not gonna show up.
Yeah.
The one hard number I can give you, and you can pass the information out accordingly, is we have on the YouTube channel that the town has, we have just under 300 regular subscribers that tune in regularly and watch meeting replays
right.
off of the YouTube channel. So even if we just erroneously extrapolate and say that's how many people that are viewing it live on TV that don't have a computer, but I suspect it's more than that because, well, for instance, a meeting about a couple weeks ago, a month and a half ago, we got 1,100 views on the YouTube channel, so that strikes me as, yes, word of mouth, people were saying, go to YouTube, but
Check it out.
they were also viewing the replays of that on television as well, so I suspect there's quite a bit more than just 300 people that are watching things, you know, regularly.
Okay, thank you.
Well, in the past, I would miss the Tuesday night because I was in another board at that particular time, and I would watch it on Saturday because it was a consistent, the
Right.
selectmen's meeting on Tuesday always aired on Saturday.
Right.
And I know that I've talked to other people that did the same thing too, so.
I get emails from the general public as well as board members on a fairly regular basis of when's meeting XYZ gonna be up on TV or up on YouTube soon, so.
All righty.
We have about 5 minutes. We might be able to do 4.8.
I was just gonna say that. 4.8, setting of trick or treating time. So is there something that I need to read off of, or how are we doing that?
I don't think so. I mean, it's just,
We normally do, what do we normally do?
do you remember what we did last year? I do not remember.
6 to 8, I thought it was on.
It was 6 to 8 and
I
it was,
don't go by me, that's how I remember it, but
Let
do you
me,
remember, Sabrina?
I'm gonna
You're gonna double check.
I'm gonna check the town's.
and are we doing it Halloween or are we moving it?
Well, it's a Tuesday, the 31st is a Tuesday.
Correct.
Tuesday, and there's no Board of Selectmen meeting, so where else would the kids be? Other than trick or treating?
Well, no, there has been times where we've moved it to the weekend,
I think that's a
But,
Tuesday, though. I think
like
that's,
Tuesday. I'd rather be on Halloween.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
let's see.
I don't have a problem keeping it on Halloween, on the 31st. I think my school loans are due that day. For the first time in, what, 3 years?
Yeah, it's not thrilling when that happens, right? I can't find it from last year.
Sabrina's looking that up. I'll fill some empty space here then. Oh, no, a little advertisement for TCAM, but I'm planning to do like I did last year, where we had 4 nights in a row of old-fashioned black and white horror movies to show we're showing them from 2 in the afternoon till midnight, 4 nights in a row.
Oh, nice.
So I've rounded up some new, different movies. I got a copy of Frankenstein, Dracula, the old school classics that we're gonna be showing. And even a couple of Abbott and Costello Meet the Wolfman kind of.
That is real classic right there.
So there'll be plenty to do, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday nights on your local cable channel 9.
Chelmsford has already announced theirs for 6 to 8, so that's the only town I can find that announced.
Yeah. 6 to 8
6
last
to
year.
8.
So the 31st from 6 to 8 is probably.
All right, so how are we doing this? We don't have to do a motion.
Might as well.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll
I
entertain a
always-
motion to set the trick or treating time to between 6 and 8 o'clock
October 30th.
on October 31st.
So moved.
And I'll second. All those in favor?
Should we say Marsh, yes?
Yeah, Sexton Duranian, yes. It's part of our highfalutin tasks that we do here. All right, that brings us to almost 7 o'clock, but I do see that Beth is here.
Jessica too.
Jessica is here.
Yes.
And 2.3, Land Use Department presentation on MBTA compliance mission project for special town meeting on 11/14/2023. So Jessica, you want to take the floor?
Sure. And whoever is at TCAM control, if it's Dave or Hartley, can you give Beth screen sharing permissions, please?
Indeed, I will.
All right, so I'll get started while he's doing that. So thanks for having us tonight on short notice. So we just wanted to give you guys a brief overview of our efforts to date toward getting into compliance with this new MBTA. It's not so new anymore, but with the new MBTA communities zoning law. So anybody feel free to interrupt too, because I'm sure several of you know more about this than I do. So the new section of the Zoning Act requires MBTA communities to have at least one zoning district that permits dense multifamily housing. So an MBTA community, for all intents and purposes, is one that either has MBTA services or is adjacent to one with MBTA services. So Townsend touches Shirley, which has a commuter rail stop. So lo and behold, we must comply with this new law. So Townsend needs to adopt at least one zoning district that allows for the dense multifamily development. Dense here is defined as a minimum of 15 units per acre. Townsend's specific requirement is to select an area of land that's adequate for 178 units. So the math works out on that to be a minimum district size of about 12 acres. So just to note, at this point, the law is requiring the creation of a zoning district only. by the end of 2025, but not to actually build these units. So Townsend's been working with our local planning commission, the MRPC, under a technical assistance grant to help us find areas that are suitable for the placement of this new zoning district. So if Beth can screen share the latest map, please.
Oh, hi, everybody. I am on my phone, so
Oh,
let's see what we can do.
all right. I can do it if not, if it's too difficult.
All right. I have it. Okay. Yeah, why don't you go ahead? I just tried and it didn't
Okay,
work.
that's fine. Harley,
My apologies.
change of plans. Jessica, screen share, please.
I'll get it, Hartley.
This next part's real visual, so I'll just let you guys hold on there.
Okay, give it a try, Jessica.
All right.
There we go.
Oops.
It's Beth's screen.
That's Beth.
Did it work?
This will stop. No, but it's okay.
Okay,
I'm
mine did not
gonna
work.
close you out of
Okay.
there. That's fine.
All right, good.
All right. So you guys should be able to see this map with all these cool lines.
There we go.
So, yes, so this is the latest and greatest map. It has undergone many different revisions, but so the state, and I'll zoom in a minute, but the state provided, they call them guidelines, but I see them more as restrictions for what is not really feasible to place one of these districts on top of. So all the red is basically disqualified, ineligible, because it is government owned, either at the town level or the state level. Other sort of restricted areas are those that are associated with environmentally sensitive lands, so things like wetlands, wetland buffers, floodplains, well and groundwater protection areas. I think endangered species habitat is made the list too. So those are just sort of the state issued restrictions. On top of that, there's the Townsend specific restrictions. So finding a location where there's an ability to connect to a public water supply. You just need appropriate subsurface conditions for the septic capacity. There are quite a few areas with steep slopes. We have the Aquifer Protection Overlay District, which does not allow for dense development. So all of these things together, you can see on the map that sort of the remaining potentially feasible areas are those in white. So that's like a fifth, maybe, of town. And then from there, we had to narrow it down even further. Again, I had already mentioned 2 areas where either already have or can have a connection to the public water supply. So we started with maybe 10 or so different locations and have since narrowed it down to these final 3, which I will zoom in on a bit. So for reference, if you guys can see my mouse, Town Hall is up here. So these are pretty much all off of Route 13. So another guideline that the state put out was that these districts should be located with reasonable access to a transit station and some commercialization. So the idea behind these 3 contenders was just being able to hop on 13 and shoot down to Lunenburg and Fitchburg to do your shopping or hop on your public transportation. So based on the general characteristics of these 3 proposed districts, there has been draft bylaw language that's been written by MRPC, and it will be continually edited as we further narrow down the site selection process. So next steps from here, we have in the works, MRPC will be giving a sort of an MBTA 101, I guess, presentation at the town meeting on November 14th. So the residents can sort of try to better understand this law and the requirements that Townsend needs to meet. And then after that meeting, we are going to collect questions and feedback and everything in hopes of maybe holding a forum at a later date, a month or two down the road, based on the feedback that we get so far. So the forum, you know, we hope to be able to provide responses, add whatever clarification is needed, so that we can select one of these 3 districts to try to move forward with, and then finalize the bylaw language based on the final selection. So bylaw language meaning, you know, design standards, affordability provision, setbacks, so on and so forth. So the goal is for the town to vote on this at the annual town meeting in spring of 2024. So we are just beginning sort of the education outreach process now. So again,
Jess, do you mind if I chime in real quick?
go for it.
So I really want to give a lot of credit to Jess and Beth and their staff for working on this. This is as everybody who's touched this knows, this is a big deal. Karen and her staff at MRPC have been really super helpful. It was great that we were able to get that DLTA grant to allow them to have some technical assistance to work with this for us. I want to also, you know, let everybody know that, you know, Dave Vigilant, the water superintendent, has been really helpful in identifying areas that would be both appropriate and not appropriate for purposes of either aquifer protection or access to the town water infrastructure, because that's something else that's kind of at its base level a requirement. Jess is not kidding about the amount of work that's gone into this. We started literally with districts all over the map. And as a team, we kind of sat down and whittled down the districts and worked with MRPC to narrow down their criteria to what we think are 3 viable possible districts to approve. And the next step, as Jess mentioned, really is to convince the town, that we've done all this work, and how important it is for us to kind of move forward and choose a district and put that in front of the town to pass in the spring. So thanks, Jess, and Beth, both of you, for doing all this work on this.
And what are these, like District 1? I see there's no lots in there right now. Is that farmland? Is that forested? Do you have any idea what's in that district now?
It's a question for them.
Just
Yeah.
curious. That's all right.
I can pull up my Google Maps real quick. Hang on.
I can figure it out.
I think, I mean, a lot of these, I might have mentioned it earlier. If not, I apologize. So the sort of the nice thing about this proposed district is that we can use it as an overlay district. So it doesn't sort of trump the underlying use of any of these lots or parcels. So it's not like we would need to, you know, kick out existing residents to take over these parcels or anything. It's sort of setting the stage for future development if someone chose to tackle a dense multifamily development.
Okay, thank you.
We did really end up, after a lot of thought about other places like down 119, closer to Groton or closer to the high school, we really did feel like given the proximity of Lunenburg and Fitchburg down on 113, and the fact that I mean, sorry, not 1 through, down 13. And the fact that 13, as you get into Lunenburg, has lots of different uses on it, including industrial uses, car dealerships, like, it becomes a very different kind of road the minute you get out of town. Having a kind of a denser multifamily development that close to the town line wouldn't be this drastic change that it would be if you dropped it in some other parts of town.
Right.
District 3 is further up into town. But again, that has the ability, because of its shape, to pull the density off of 13, so it's not visible from the road, and it may be denser in the core, but the actual interaction with the street is much less dense looking.
So is the plan, I'm sorry, is the plan to pick one of these 3 districts and go to the town and say, by law, we need to have a district. Here's what we represent, here's the background we did. We came from 10, we went to 1, now we're down to this one. Here's where it's located, and we need town approval. Or is it to go to the town with 3 and pick one?
Well, I think, and Jess, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one of the things we talked about was having some, and Jess and Beth have been very creative about this, but having some pamphlets put together at town meeting for people to have in their hand that includes potentially a QR code to an online kind of like little questionnaire.
Yep.
That says, here are these 3 districts, which one do you like? Which one, rank them in order of your preference as to where you think multifamily should be. And that can help us kind of drive based on what kind of feedback we get. I think the goal would be when we come in the spring to have a district.
Right.
But how we get there,
Yeah.
I think can involve some interaction with the town. So what we were thinking about doing was having a pamphlet that everybody got when they came into town meeting that had a QR code, but also had like a area for writing. So people who didn't want to use a QR code could actually write in their comments if they have it and leave it with staff on the night of the town meeting. But you could also use your QR code and go online and answer the questions and make comments online. And we could collate that information so that when we did have a forum later, we'd be using the information that we collected from the questionnaires and the comments to drive both kind of where we're going to direct our future efforts to narrow down the district, but also to have any questions that people may have answered at a forum based on what the feedback we're getting.
And Jessica and Beth, I want to thank you both for the hard work that you're putting in, plus the other members that you've worked at. I also want to kind of throw in there that, I mean, I've worked with MRPC on several different projects along the last 8 or 10 years that I've been in public service. And you have a housing production plan, we have a master plan that all point to this one area for this particular, knowing that this law was coming into effect. So the fact that, you have narrowed it down to 3 districts, I applaud you for the work, because I know I was there at the beginning part of saying, how are we going to tackle this? How do you eat an elephant one bite at a time kind of thing. I think that's great. And this exactly is what I had said earlier about how the different departments within our town are working together to be able to come up with something like this, because it's MRPC, it's the land use department, it's all the other departments that touch upon something of this magnitude. So I personally want to thank you both for the effort, and please thank the other staff that's been working too. Jessica, my questions are, these are also been vetted by, or are they going to be vetted by like the Conservation Commission or any other board or committee that needs to look at these as well?
So we have been keeping the planning board apprised of general progress. The chair of the planning board actually did attend our latest staff meeting as well. For conservation, you could see on the map some of the red areas are those that are mapped, are known wetland and stream features for the state's database.
We
So
tried
we-
to take the Concom out of the jurisdiction.
Yeah, darn conservation.
I mean, just
Um,
because it's easier to say,
Well,
here's a
Historic District Commission is not in there either, so. you
yeah,
know.
on purpose.
Yeah.
yeah, no, I mean, we played a lot of games of ping pong with a lot of different districts. But yeah, I mean, at our staff meetings, we had land use, we had water. I think we had building for a while, the assessors.
We got input from the Board of Health.
Rick Metcalf was there. Yeah, so I think we've had like all-star contribution to this. So you know, we've found districts that appeased just about every board, we think, and department. So
Well, this is what I'm saying. We're all working together, and
that's
that's
really good.
music
Yeah.
to my ears.
Any other questions? You're all set.
So the plan would be, as long as the Board of Selectmen's okay, we put this on for a presentation in the night town meeting.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
I'm fine.
Okay.
All right, great. Thanks, Jess. Thanks, Beth.
2 thumbs up to the both of you.
Woo.
Nice job.
We will pass it along. Thanks for your time, everybody. Have a good
Alrighty,
evening.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Yeah, everybody's been working really hard on that, and it's,
It shows.
You have
That was
to,
a lot
you
of
have to
work,
with a
yeah.
project like that, you really
Yeah.
have to.
yeah.
All right, 4.3 is a discussion of open meeting law complaints.
I believe that the open meeting law complaint was a part of the SharePoint
Yes, it was in there.
package that everyone had. We received an open meeting law complaint regarding the Board of Selectmen meeting on September 5th, 2023. Just to be clear, this is, we have some requirements when we receive an open meeting law complaint as a public body. The first is the chair must disseminate a complaint to the members of the public body, so that's why we put it on SharePoint, so all members of the Board of Selectmen can review the complaint. We must meet to review the complaint within 14 business days, so that's why we're having it on tonight's meeting, so we can meet within the 14 business day requirement. After the review, we have to respond to the complaint in writing and must address the allegations in the complaint. And at the same time, the body must send the Attorney General a copy of the complaint and a copy of the response. The public body may delegate this responsibility to an individual member of the public body as counsel or staff member, but only after the public body has met to review the complaint. So we are required by law to meet, discuss this complaint, and then afterwards provide a response to both the complainant and to the Attorney General's office in writing. And you can delegate that. For instance, when the Board of Health had an open meeting and multiple open meeting laws complaints, they delegated me to respond after the meeting to both the complainants and to the Attorney General's office. The last one is if we need more time, but I don't think we need more time to review it. So this complaint, I'll read it into the record. Alleged violations of open meeting law based on requirements include a listing of topics that the chair reasonably anticipates will be discussed at the meeting. The violation allegedly occurred on September 5th, 2023. BOS posted the open meeting scheduled for September 5th on August 31st, 2023. So this is was the meeting immediately after Labor Day. So just so folks are aware. There was an allegation that regarding item 1.6, which I believe was a statement of the chair, a comment of the chair was how it was listed. The following items were discussed by the board during this segment. An incident at the Board of Health on August 9th, the contents of the Board of Selectmen executive session held on October 29th, alleged incidents of hostile work environment, actions taken against a Board of Health member, and discussion of 2 articles being placed on a special town meeting on September 26th to convert the Board of Health from an elected to an appointed board. So I'm assuming the members of the Board of Selectmen recall the incident that is alleged here. They're claiming that this violation is intentional because the chair knew what he was going to discuss when he posted the meeting 5 days prior to the meeting. The items that he discussed were ongoing issues that they're wrestling with for nearly a month. He stated, "We did want an open meeting to explain to the general public that we do not condone negative behavior. The issues were well thought out, announcement and discussion. There's plenty of time to revise the agenda between the date of posting and the meeting. The public have no way of knowing that it would be a discussion of the Board of Health." So rather than go on to item number 2, I think we should discuss item number 1
Okay.
and come up with a response, and then we can go on to item number 2 if that's okay with the board. So it appears as though the issue of the complainant is that the statement, comment of the chair, was not sufficiently specific enough about the contents of the comment to allow a member of the public to know what was being discussed. So that seems to be the allegation here. That all these things were discussed, but it just said comment of the chair, and there's no way the public would have known. So,
the comment was an addition to, and because the situation was so fluid, there was, it wasn't a written statement or a read statement. It was very extemporaneous. It wasn't, in my mind, it was not done maliciously. It was that to let the public know that we were addressing it.
yeah, so, my thoughts are this, kind of twofold. Number one, I know at the time that the meeting was set, the agenda was set, there was kind of a question as to whether or not, based on actions that may or may not have occurred from a member of the Board of Health, whether or not the Board of Selectmen was going to comment at all. And I think that there was a question as to whether or not you were going to even say anything. If an individual had resigned,
Then nothing would have been
nothing would
said.
have happened.
There was also 2 other members that had voiced resignations as well, and we didn't know if that was going to happen as well too.
Right.
So, there was a lot of different scenarios that were going on at that particular time.
Yeah, in hindsight, I think you could say that if you wrote comments of the chair regarding recent developments with the Board of Health, that might have been a better term for that thing, but there was no malice or discontent. And additionally, I think even though when I saw my agenda and I saw comments of the chair, I think the way that whole thing was so fluid and so everything was happening, I didn't need that extra section to think, okay, he's probably commenting on this. I think most people could come to that conclusion. And yeah, could have, would have, should have, everything can always be better in hindsight, but it's the intent that's behind it. And I don't think there was any intent to say, okay, we're gonna have this discussion, but I don't want the rest of the town to know about it. Because believe me, the rest of the town
I already knew.
most likely that's what the discussion was about. And so if there's some way that you can write up that, there was no intent, that it was being discussed amongst the people in the community, how we're going to act, that it didn't seem that we were trying to hide anything from the community. Could we have made it more direct, or could you, of course, you're always good, Could somebody have caught a football or not thrown an interception? No, always coulda, woulda, shoulda. But
Yeah,
I think it's the intent there.
yeah, I feel like that in order to be perfectly fair, the answer an answer to this complaint should say, there was no intent to deceive the public, that the situation was fluid about whether or not the chair was going to speak or what he was going to speak on, depending on what happened in the time between the meeting was posted and when he spoke. And in the future, the board of selectmen will make sure that if there's going to be something like this, we have at least a little more detail about the content of what might be spoken. So that a person,
Okay with that.
and I mean, I think that's fair to, I mean, because if we had put that comment on the Board of Health regarding the Board of Health, I think that might have satisfied the issue, and we can.
The only concern, I don't want the response to be as a corrective action in the future. I don't think it's a corrective action. I think in hindsight, going forward, we will. But I don't think we need to correct the past because there was no intent in the past. So I don't like the use of corrective action, and just say in the future we will be more direct with some.
Sure.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, so I can put together that as a kind of response to number one. Okay, violation two, open and close the special town meeting warrant. When this discussion began, it quickly digressed to a conversation about the merits and strategy of the warrant articles about the Board of Health. It also allowed public comment by 2 residents, despite there not being a public comment period on the agenda. And even after the chair stated there would be none. I don't know if that may be a reference to when it's months ago you removed the public comment section. I think that's a misunderstanding of that removal, but we can talk about that in a minute. They also discussed many communications received from residents about the horror of the incident on August 9th, necessitating the urgent need to act against the Board of Health. The meeting is recorded and is available for viewing on YouTube. The meeting went on to other items and 4-point discussion picked up again, I guess I'm not clear as to violation number 2 as to why there was a concern about that being a violation of the open meeting law. I guess my statement would be it was discussion of the open and closing of the special town meeting warrant, which means we have to discuss the warrant articles.
Right.
Every warrant article was going to be discussed. I don't think that's a violation of the open meeting law.
I reviewed the video and I don't see, the word digress means that we were stuck on something. We were addressing every article equally, so I don't see that we zeroed in on one particular one.
And those 2 articles that we put on regarding the Board of Health, I think were very serious things and required serious discussion. I mean, it's not something the board took lightly.
Exactly.
Right, I think, upon looking upon it again too, I think, again, in hindsight, like, there was discussion, like, is it both, is it one versus the other, what's the difference, that type of thing.
Yeah, if we do one, do we need to add the other?
Do we need to add the other? But I don't see, again, the same thing, we wanted to, I shouldn't say this, me, as a member of the Board of Selectmen, had one goal, and we wanted to respond and give the public the right to say to us what they wanted us to do. And that's where the discussion was. We don't want to say, we want you to, this or that, we wanted to give options. And so it did become kind of like, how intense or what do we want to do? But I think the digression is like, can't we just do it ourselves? And we were like, no, we don't want to just do it. We want to know what the people of the town want. So I think it showed how important it was to us that we get the town to tell us what the action was. So I didn't see it as digression. I think it is what we do as selectmen.
We have to debate the issues. Debate's not the right word, but we have to look at all sides of it. But I'll go back to even number 2 is equally as important as there was no intent behind it. It was we basically had something in front of us, excuse me, that we needed to address, and I think we addressed it in the way that we felt important. And I agree with you, Teresa. That was our big. Our big driving factor is to let the town vote for it. we allowed the town to vote for it and they voted for it. So, you know, in hindsight, yes, we possibly could do things differently, but there was no malice behind any of it. It was to be able to make sure that we are doing the right thing. At least that's where my intent was.
I do want to quickly address this public comment issue in here, about the fact that the board allowed 2 residents to comment on that section.
I didn't see that.
Well, no, I mean, they did. 2 people who weren't members of the Board of Selectmen commented. I think the key about that is, although the board, the chair, removed the generic public comment section from the agenda at the suggestion of town council because of, you know, the implications of having a non-specific public comment section. Nothing about the removal of that public comment section would preclude the chair from allowing the public to speak on a specific item. Like and I think that's the misunderstanding here, is the person seems to think that the removal of the generic public comment section means that no one can ever speak, and that's simply not the case.
That's not the case at all.
So if it's okay with the board, what I would like to say to this is, you know, at no time during the discussion of item 4.1 did the board discuss things that were not fundamental articles that were going to be on the warrant, and that the complainant misunderstands the public comment issue, and I'll describe it just like as I described it to you guys. Now, the requested action would be like, I would like the board to apologize to the townspeople for this egregious violation of the open meeting law. They should properly post the apology on an upcoming agenda. The apology should also be posted on the main page of the town's website. The minutes of the meeting should reflect fully what was discussed during the meeting. I want the members of the Board of Selectmen to take another training on the open meeting law. They should not violate the open meeting law again. I don't believe that there's anything in here except for the fact that the minutes of the meeting should fully reflect what was discussed during the meeting. That's reasonable.
I agree.
And so
the egregious, I don't see. I mean, again, that suggests that there's malice in intent behind. There was nothing negative, and nothing is agenda driven in anything that this board has done. We've all been very vocal on our opinions on how we deal with certain issues. I will be the first one to say that if I did something wrong, I did something wrong. But I believe that we acted in good faith.
So I feel like with respect to, I mean, with respect to the response, even though a part of the complaint has what action do you want the public bodies to take in response to your complaint, there's no requirement that the public body comply with that response. And I can put in the complaint that, you know, as we discussed earlier, in the future, the board will make sure that the descriptions are more direct or specific about the contents of comments of the chair. And we'll make sure that any minutes of this meeting accurately reflect what was discussed in the meeting. And I think that would be that's what we're going to do going forward. Is that?
I'm fine with that.
So what I would like to do is I will draft up a response. I will send it out to the members of the board. I'll blind copy you all, and then you can just respond to me if it's okay. And then I will send it out to the complainant.
I'm okay with it.
That's fine.
Okay. There's no indication that that it requires a vote, but I just, in an abundance of caution, maybe we should have a vote for the board delegating me to respond to the public, to the open meeting law complaint.
So moved.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Teresa A. Moss, yes.
Section Duranian, yes.
Okay, we'll get that turned around.
4.7.
review and approve warrant for 11/14 fall town meeting. Excuse me.
So this is going to be a 5-article fall town meeting, so not a lot in numbers, but let's do that one right there. So, just to be clear at the very top, we're setting the town meeting for November 14th, 2023 at 7 p.m. with the anticipated continuance date of November 18th, 2023 at 9 a.m. So that's the Saturday. I did discuss with Adam. He said, technically speaking, it is up to the town meeting when they want to continue. So they don't have to continue to the 18th, but we anticipate and would request that the moderator, state that if we're going to have to continue it, that's what we're going to continue it to. And we would not have to repost it if it's continued.
Right, that was our
Yeah.
intent by doing it that way.
Article 1, we've discussed this kind of in the past. There's some prior year bills that need to get paid, totaling $4,674.73. I have discussed with town accountant at Markham, and we do anticipate free cash to be certified in time for the November 14th date. So we would be able to pay that $4,600 out of free cash. So that's the first one. I'm going to skip Article 2 real quick, just so we can discuss Article 3, which I think is with the other articles, and we can come back to Article 2. Article 3, this is, there was $431,000 that the water department received. It was from a portion of the SRF loan that reimbursed the town for funds that we already spent out of general fund money.
Correct.
So in order for them to spend this $431,000, we need to have an appropriation of those funds.
Okay.
And so this lays out how the water department anticipates the spending of that $431,000 and appropriates the funds for those things.
Right, and I'd like to add on to that this is monies from a loan, so it can't be used to pay a loan back or whatever. So the water department, and Dave, we had a water department meeting last night. They wanted to make sure that they were doing the best of their ability to be able to get the biggest bang for the buck. And the thought behind this particular article was that in doing so, yes, they are purchasing things. However, ultimately, it is going to be reducing and allowing Dave to be able to lower the anticipated rate structure percentages to put them a little more in line with what they think is going to be more appropriate for the town.
Yeah, so as you can tell by looking at these expenditures, these are capital plan expenditures that they're going to now be paying for with this loan, the loans funds that we got from the SRF to reimburse us for water department. I said general fund earlier, that was in the statement. Water enterprise funds that they've expended on the engineering for the water treatment plant. So,
is it revenue replacement? No.
Yeah.
Revenue replacement.
And so these funds, the use of these funds and not having to borrow or expend future water revenue on these expenses is going to lower the required rate increases in the water department over the next few years. So that's one of the reasons why we're going to take this money instead of spending water department revenue that would come from rate increases. So the total is $431,000. It's broken down into those 5 separate things. I noticed that I didn't put a dollar sign in front of the $170,000 for the backer, so I'll edit that. So that's Article 3. Article 4 is going to be the presentation on the MBTA communities. That's going to be the last article on the list.
What's this TCAM article?
So that's the last one I wanted to mention. We are going to insert, I spoke to Dave earlier. We got a request for TCAM to have, as we do regularly, take the PEG access receipts that we've gotten and put them into transfer them into a TCAM account so TCAM can request money from it. That's part of our MOU. We agree that the PEG access receipts that Comcast submits to us, we put into a PEG access account, but it does require a vote to do it. So we're gonna put that TCAM article in to put the PEG access receipts that have been thus received since the last time we did this.
So it's a
into
full
an
year,
account.
I think. Should be a full year,
But we did it in May.
but I think that was.
That was for that was for the first 3 quarters of FY 23. So we've got the last quarter of FY 23 we need to do, and the first quarter of FY 24 we need to do.
So 3 quarters.
I think it's just 2. Last quarter of FY 23, first quarter of FY 24, I think. But I will sort that out with the treasurer's office. The fund, the amount of this is going to be the amount of the 2, whatever quarters we've received from Comcast, so we can appropriately transfer that into appropriate that for TCAM. And so that's a very straightforward thing. We do it regularly. It happens multiple times. So now to go back to Article 2. So this is the one that is a little bit tricky. So this is a vote to amend Article 5 from the annual town meeting, which was the annual budget. So at the time that we originally proposed, drafted, and submitted the budget to town meeting, we included deliberately ARPA funds in our calculation, and those funds were included in the lines that we were allocating. So if we were going to spend, for instance, the Affordable Housing Trust money was all coming from ARPA, but we set up lines for the Affordable Housing Trust in the budget. So after reviewing that with our consultant and with the accountant, in order to do that, we had to do one of 2 things. We either had to have ARPA listed as a funding source in the budget, which we did not do. We didn't list ARPA as a funding source, or we needed to go back and remove all the ARPA money from those lines and maintain ARPA as a separate funding source. After discussions with the consultant and the accountant, it's easier for accounting purposes if we remove the ARPA from the funding lines in the general fund and just fund those things directly from ARPA accounts, rather than transfer them into the general fund and expend from the general fund. Because then we have to keep track of that fund line as to whether or not it's spending ARPA money or general fund money for purpose of federal reporting.
So line 7 represents what department, and is it the grand total line where we're moving these from?
No, so all the lines up to 787 are individual, not department lines, but individual specific lines in the budget. Now, if you think it makes sense, I can add a section in between amend and from as line 7, and it says what it is.
I think we need to have that.
Okay,
I think it will help with the questioning.
Okay, put that in there. So line 7 is the community services.
Whatever it is.
Line 8 is the HR manager. Line 162 is the conservation agent that we had put aside some ARPA funds for. Line 253 is the police budget that we had set aside some ARPA funds for.
But it would have to, so that's where I'm confused. So line 7 is under, let's say, general government, right?
Yeah, if you see on the next page, the functional segments are on the second page.
Okay, so you do, so that's where you have to make the change to the functional section. I was gonna say.
We're gonna vote on the.
Not change in line 7 and then have
Yeah,
to
so-
change the total line, which is line whatever.
Yeah, Article 2, the first part is mostly explanatory. The motion is going to be to change the functional segments on the second page. Like, that's what the motion is, because that's what we vote on.
Right.
The functional segments for general government, public safety, education, highway and streets, and it's just going to be for the amounts for FY24 and then the grand total. So just so you know, 253 is police. 290 through 327 are all fire. There are 2 salary lines and 2 supply lines, because they were getting money for supply as well as salaries. Line 529 is the paving line. Line 611 through 617 is the Affordable Housing Trust, because they're all being funded from ARPA, so they're all being zeroed out, so they're not getting any general fund money. And then line 683 is the one that is not ARPA related. That is an error on the library salary budget. So when they increased the hours at the library and then got the raise, the budgeted amount was short to cover both the increase in hours at the library to open for Saturday hours and to fund their increase. And that's my fault. So that's an increase that's in there. And then the total budget is going to be reduced by the amount of the ARPA funding, which is $349,760. So that's the difference between the 26,371,000 and the 26,022.
So it would help, I think, the people having to have this at the town meeting, not only to have the line, but if you're gonna add that in, can you add the department to the ledger?
Sure, yeah, I'll put it'll say Board of Selectmen, Human Resources Manager, or Police, Salary and Wages, something like that.
Yeah, have both of those added to two more
Yeah.
columns. Thank you.
So the reason why this is included, because this I wanted this first part to demonstrate where those actual changes are happening.
Right.
The second part is what we're actually voting on, and it doesn't indicate the change. It's just indicating we're voting a new general government functional segments.
Correct.
But it's reflected in these changes that were made in earlier in Article 2. So the new grand total of the budget is $26,022,126, as opposed to what we earlier voted on, which was $26,378.86. Does that make sense? I agree with you that we need to put some more description in between amended.
Yeah, we might need to also come up with some sort of description.
As to why?
Yeah.
A why?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking that might be something we said verbally as opposed to put into the article, but
No, I don't mean put it in the article, but like do a handout or whatever to kind of
okay,
illustrate.
Sure.
That's what I'm thinking of.
sure.
Just to illustrate what we're talking about, to try to make it a little more clear.
Yeah, and what I can do is I can put together a list of the what ARPA is funding. We have $349,000 that ARPA is funding, and these are what they're funding for ARPA, and that's why we're changing these lines.
Right.
So the other changes involve, as we had just kind of discussed, the hope was to use free cash to fund salary stabilization, specifically for the police department, because their contract wasn't settled at the time we did the town meeting. And so we didn't know how much to put aside for their increase. So rather than take that from free cash, because we had the audit that came back that said we're going to have $120,000 less in free cash. One of the reasons why line number 529 is reduced from 201,000 to 146,000 is to supplement the police budget to pay the difference between what was budgeted and what we ultimately settled for their contract. Okay. So if I could get the board to vote to accept the warrant subject to the changes that we discussed and approval of town council.
So moved.
Second.
I was going to say all those in favor, but that's not my job.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Tuesday, March, yes?
Just exhilarating. I would have let you say that.
Yeah, I know. It's a bridge too far, Chaz. A bridge too far.
Right, ARPA projects. The next one would be looking at the new ARPA project.
Yeah, so when the town set the ARPA budget, it set up a project for a 30-hour-a-week HR manager and full-time benefited position to come in and help the town handle the HR functions. In the year that Callie has been here,
it has become increasingly clear that the town underestimated the amount of HR functions that quite simply were not being formed at all. Not just the functions that needed to happen, that were happening, but there were, things like FMLA, things like onboarding and offboarding processes that simply didn't exist in the town at the time that this project was contemplated. So if you look at the scope of work, this is a kind of a scope of work of all of the items that are under the HR manager's purview. So this proposal is to increase the HR manager's hours from 30 hours to 40 hours a week. It wouldn't require any new benefits because it's already a benefited position. It's we as a town, I believe that we need to have these increased services, and it's very clear. I mean, Callie's doing really great work. It's very clear that the time that she has during the week is not sufficient for her to get through all the things that she needs to do. In addition, there are some things that are still reside at the treasurer's office that ideally should reside with the HR manager, and the increase of these hours would allow us to make that transition. So that's the proposal. If you look at the very last page of the proposal, it does have after this scope of work, it's got both the current cost remaining, and then the total cost to increase with the increase in hours. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just really concerned in the time that we're talking about. We've got to be prepared. We're talking about tightening budgets, that we increase anybody's hours. I mean, I think we're going to be going to department heads, and I don't know how it's going to turn out, what we're going to look for. But we started this meeting. The first, I think, the agenda item, one of the earlier beginning to identify was, talk to the department heads and tell them that we need to tighten our belts. And so I'll start with that. And then second, I get nervous if we add more on offer that has to do with independent individuals. I know there's supposed to be a plan getting in place to get them off, when offer goes away. How are we going to recover that? But if we truly need additional hours, I'd rather see we find it in the budget than to use more ARPA funds to fund this position. That's where I stand on it.
So I'm in agreement with you. I'm concerned about the salaries that are involved with ARPA and then making them sustainable. I've been very worried about that from the get-go when we first started talking about it. But I also have to stop and think that for a very long time, there hasn't been a real HR functioning person here in town. It's been a little bit of this and a little bit of that. I also know that the HR documentation was very subpar. And with today's standards, with today's requirements, there's a lot that's there, and that position is the only position in town hall that does that function. No other.
Oh, yeah. And everybody knows when I make a comment here, it's not on an individual.
Oh,
I
yeah.
know
Oh, yeah.
she's doing an amazing job. It's
That
the
goes without saying.
concept.
And I feel the same way. Having said that, in dealing with, in the real world or the other real world that I deal with,
staffing and HR is always a very difficult task. It's a very daunting task. So I see on the reverse side of that, even though we may not be able to fund it after 2026, if we can get an individual in here to get things up and running the way that they're supposed to, maybe it won't need the 40 hours that it needs right now. That's kind of like what I'm thinking, because there's just the discussion of digitizing some of our records and all of that kind of stuff is going to be something that we need to do, we have to do. And if we're able to do that with ARPA funds right now, then we need to get it done, because after 26, those funds aren't going to be there for it. The last thing that I think is equally as important is that in order for us as an entity to service our employees properly, we need somebody there that's going to be able to do that. HR is much more than, your onboarding and offboarding and, here's your 401k paperwork and all of that kind of stuff. There's a lot of functionality that happens that has to do with managing your family. EAP is huge. If there's a problem within your family, and it is within the realm of HR to be able to help that individual out, that's going to retain employees for us, because it is cheaper for us to try to retain employees than train new ones, marketing and training and all of that kind of stuff. So yes, I agree with you, Teresa, in that respect. I think that we also have to keep in mind that this is desperately needed right now.
Yeah, I mean, so if I could just make one other comment. So funding this out of ARPA right now doesn't preclude us from trying to find a way to fund it in the budget. As Chaz said, we have to work on that anyway. We have to work on a way to fund these positions in the budget to the extent that we want to keep them. One of the things that I'm doing with both Rebecca, who's our community services person, and with Callie, is having them, so I think the board did a great job by putting together those two positions and setting aside the money for them. But I'm having them both evaluate their jobs to make sure that the board, who did kind of like pulled those numbers a little bit out of a hat, to make sure that what the town needs is expressly in those positions. And so, I may be coming forward at some point in time and telling you that, there's too many hours in a position, and what are we going to do with the excess hours of a position that's being funded? But in this case, Callie's done this for a year. We've had multiple discussions about it. It's very clear that the work that needs to get done to bring us compliance is more than a 30-hour-a-week job. So the question is, what do we do then? If we believe that, and I do, then what's the next step? I'd love to be able to fund it from the budget. I mean, we put aside some extra money into part-time employees in the Board of Selectmen. So we can redirect some of those funds, but I think we put an extra $4,000 in that, not an extra.
So let's put funding aside for right now, okay? We know as selectmen, we can't ever look at the parasite because you can't, right?
Sure.
Everybody would have, 20% pay raises if we look at most of the people that work for this town. Amazing people that work in it. So I want to put that aside. Why is this, with the small town that we have, with the fact that we didn't have this, position for a while, why is it can't be done in 30 hours?
Well, I think, so from my perspective, the answer is the risks that we run if we're not compliant with HR practices are a repeat of kind of errors in the past with respect to appropriate hiring and firing, the town has faced multiple lawsuits for that. We have been, running the risk of being not compliant with COBRA guidelines, not compliant with FMLA guidelines. The fact that we haven't gotten a financial penalty other than the multiple lawsuits that the town is facing for its hiring and employment practices is, in my opinion, due more to luck than skill. But the reality is, if you look back at the outstanding litigation that the town has faced, the vast majority of it is based on claims of employment issues. And that's what we need HR here to do.
And this is the reason why we put this position in place, is because of that.
I mean, if I guess I feel like if the Board of Selectmen had originally set it up at 40 hours and there was 40 hours worth of work, there wouldn't have been a question about it, a full-time HR person. The fact that it was set up at 30 and now we have to come back and reevaluate it, I think, you're right to ask the question. But if you look at the, kind of the scope of work, and think about the kind of how many of these things, the workers' comp administration enforcement that we weren't doing properly, the COBRA requirements, the FMLA requirements that weren't being done properly before they were here. They were not contemplated in the 30 hours because I don't think anybody knew that those were issues that we needed to have to deal with.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not suggesting that I'm not hearing exactly what you're saying, but I would not be advocating for Callie to get a raise. I'm not advocating for this position to get an increase in pay. I'm advocating for this position to get more hours because we don't have enough hours in the 30-hour week to do the work that needs to get done.
And does it need to be additional 10 hours for the next, till 2026? Can we see, she's at 30, can we see if 35 works and go to 38 and then go to 40? Or we just want, she needs 10.
I believe that she needs 10. I mean, the board obviously has the one who's control over the ARPA projects, and so.
No, I want it to be based on, do we really, in this time that everybody's gonna say, come to us and say, I need more of this, I need more of that, I need more thing, and we're gonna say, no, you need to cut stuff, you need to do that. I mean, you're here for us with this.
Yeah,
so,
but that's based upon that's coming out of the budget, whereas this is ARPA funding.
Yeah, I don't like that to influence it though. Like if we need it, it's needed,
And we need it.
Yeah, but you're not wrong. I mean,
I agree too, you're not wrong.
Here's the reality. If I had walked into this office and there wasn't this ARPA project, I would have demanded that the Board of Selectmen figure out a way to get an HR person out of the general fund budget, because you can't operate a town without having an HR person. And I realize that we're a small town with a smaller staff, but that's why we don't have an HR department. We just have an HR person. But I completely, I don't want to make it sound like I don't think your complaints are valid. I think they absolutely are, and those are questions.
And they're not complaints, they're questions, they really are.
But I think they're.
You also look at the reverse side too, that if we had the majority of smaller entities will be looking for outside HR firms to do their HR process, which is well above this amount. For the outside agencies.
It just seems like a big jump from one year and we're talking about, continuing.
Yeah, but I do want to make it clear that we are talking about 1, 2, 3, 3 and a portion of years. This is not a kind of a 1-year expenditure. It's 3 and a portion. And Callie from the get-go understands that this is an ARPA funded position, and and while the town will do everything we can to try and make sure that it gets funded in the general fund budget, and I will advocate for it to be funded in the general fund budget, that the reality is that it's an ARPA position and it's funded as a grant right now. And so
that's the, you know, the deal that she's signed up for. And if that means that it gets to the end of it and we have to say, we can no longer fund it as a 48-hour position, we can only fund it as a 30-hour or a 25-hour position, then we'll have to make that determination at the time. But I think everything you're saying is perfectly valid.
Okay, I'm ready. Good job, Ellen.
So I will entertain a motion to,
I believe it'd be a motion to approve an increase in the HR manager ARPA line in the amount of.
what was this? Okay, yeah, you're right, because it's already an existing,
Yeah.
excuse me. So what do you think it should say, Eric?
I think there should be a motion to approve an increase in the ARPA allocation line for the HR manager in the amount of $56,600.
So moved.
Second. See how I did that?
I
can
do
tell.
have some discussion still.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So, just one last question. Does what we just said today impact this that we have to take out of the budget?
No.
Okay, thanks.
No, because the funding will remain in the ARPA line, so it's not going to impact the budget.
What's that?
So,
All those in favor?
Teresa Amos, yes?
Chad Sexton-Green, yes.
And so this would be coming from the ARPA line. And so I apologize, we're gonna have to amend that motion. I realized I didn't say where the money's coming from. We were informed by our consultant that we have over budgeted for the ARPA consultant line. So that's where this would be coming from the line for the ARPA consultant.
Okay, I think it said it on the paper. Right?
Yeah, I think we should say it in the motion. So I think that the motion should be to approve an increase in the ARPA manager's ARPA line to be funded from the ARPA consultant line in the amount of $56,600.
So moved.
Second on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment?
Teresa Amos, yes?
Chad Sexton-Green, yes.
That would be effective November 1.
Thank you, Callie, because she's doing a crackerjack job.
She really is.
5.1, Town Administrator Report.
Okay. So I included a letter from Jimmy Smith, our highway superintendent. So as you may have noted, and it feels a little bit like a deja vu. We appointed another heavy equipment operator this evening. Jimmy lost another heavy equipment operator. So this is the third hire that he's lost in the last few months. I talked to Jimmy, and we talked a little bit about his hiring practices, but I think he's going through the right things. He's being very open and honest about the job duties, and the folks that he's hired have decided for whatever reason that they didn't want to accept it. So we have a heavy equipment operator that just got approved by the board. And this is more or less to kind of let the board know what's happening in highway right now. So there remains a posting open for a heavy equipment operator and for a truck driver at highway. Obviously, these positions are very difficult to fill. We're having trouble getting folks in.
I saw they looking for plow drivers on a sign.
Yes, and we're looking for plow drivers too. So in addition to the the hiring challenges that the highway departments face. So you see in the last paragraph of the first page, he's down 3 hired contractors. And so we're posting for more contractors, and we'll hope that that gets filled, and hopefully we'll have a hiring before winter. But it does put, unfortunately, the highway department a little behind the 8 ball when it comes to plowing.
Well, I know that Jim does a great job over there.
He really does.
And he needs to understand that it's not just the highway department in Townsend. I had 2, set up 2 interviews on Monday, and there were no call, no show. So, it's pretty universal in all fields. It's very difficult right now with staffing challenges, for everybody, so. I can just imagine. I mean, he always has a vision. He knows what he needs, and he knows, what needs to happen. And when they start slowly disappearing, I can understand his frustration as well. But I think I speak for myself. I understand the situation.
Yeah. So, as you can see, it talks about what we need. We need to have 5. The town is broken into 5 zones for 5 big trucks from highway. So at the level of staff we are right now, absent somebody else coming on before winter, that puts Jimmy in a truck instead of as backup or emergency fill-in with a spare truck, which is not ideal. It may, he's not doing supervising if he's out plowing.
Yep.
And so this is there's nothing that I think the board needs to do about this. This is more of a just kind of making everybody aware. Also, if you know anybody who wants to be a heavy equipment operator or a snowplow driver or a contractor,
My
please.
grandson would love that.
Let Jimmy know.
He can't reach the pedal.
Jimmy might still take him. One of the things that Jimmy and I have talked about is going forward, attempting to make sure the next truck purchases that we make are trucks just below the CDL limit, so that we could, in theory, have a truck driver who could drive a truck but wouldn't need to have their CDL to get the job. And they're not surprisingly, there are manufacturers who make trucks that go right underneath that tonnage limit, specifically so that you can have the biggest truck you can possibly get with someone who doesn't need to have a CDL on it. So I think that we may be trying to work those into the fleet as a result of some of these struggles, but that's not going to help us this winter.
Yeah.
In addition, and this is just kind of a heads up, and obviously it doesn't require any action on the board now. We did, as the union contract does allow for the superintendent to get overtime during winter emergencies up to a certain amount. So, hopefully that will last us through the winter. Hopefully Jim will have staff. But there may be a revisiting of that if the situation doesn't change to the point where we have enough drivers to do it with Jimmy. But I just wanted to kind of so that's more of a heads up than anything else. Number 2, I wanted to let the members of the board know we had a very productive interview with a building commissioner candidate earlier this week. His name is David DeShano. He is currently a building inspector in Wilton, New Hampshire. So he'd come in with inspector experience. I did interview him with Janet. It was a very good interview. Seems like a very personable guy. He's familiar with the area. And so I am going to give him a call and see if he's interested in becoming our new building commissioner.
Okay.
The one thing he would need to do is just make sure that he can take all the tests in Massachusetts. The fact that he's already a building inspector, I don't expect him to have any issues with it, but obviously we wouldn't be able to offer him a job until he made sure that he could take those tests.
And that's like within a year or something?
18 months.
18 months.
18 months. Now, the good thing about someone like David, as opposed to one of the options that I'd mentioned to the board before of hiring someone who didn't have any, was a contractor, is he has inspection experience. It's just across the border.
but, you know, the international codes are the international codes, and so,
I
it
don't
would,
know, live free or die, New Hampshire might not.
build whatever you want. He said, yeah, he didn't inspect anything. No. Yeah, so, you know, I think it would allow us to do a ramp up at a much quicker pace than what we were contemplating. So, I just want to let folks know about that. The next thing is I included a copy of there's an update about the Mass Trails, the sidewalk project in Mass Trails. We received, we were doing our due diligence with Jess Consalvo and I on, Jess isn't on anymore, so I don't know why I'm pointing over there, but that's where she was last. Talking to design folks about the engineering for our portion of the Mass Trails project. So we had a really excellent meeting with Green Peterson Incorporated out of Wilmington. They seemed to understand the concept, and they came forward with a proposal that met the requirements of the town within the scope of budget under the Mass Trails grant. So we'd like to get them on board ASAP and get the contract turned around so that we can they can start doing the engineering, so we can move forward towards getting the plans drawn up and the hiring, the procurement done for the actual contractor over the winter, and so they can start construction on the sidewalk in the spring.
Okay.
We're really moving along. Jess is doing a great job. She actually went through their original proposal. We removed some scopes of work from their original proposal because it was about conservation stuff, and Jeff's going to take that on herself. So we were able to reduce the cost for the town out of the town's portion of the budget and spend some of our hours with that. So I would love to get a motion from the board to approve the agreement for design and permitting of the Squanic River Rail Trail Connectivity Project with the town and Greenman Peterson, and authorize the town administrator to sign the contract.
So moved.
Can I have a second? Any further discussion?
There was something there highlighted, but it's gone now. Give me 1 second.
Sure.
Oh, the exclusions. Scope exclusion, this traffic signal equipment improvements are not included. So this South Street in 119, that's gonna be a major crossing, right?
Right. So the equipment improvements are not
But it says existing equipment will be retained, but there's nothing there, is there? What are we talking about?
the traffic
There's
signals.
traffic lights.
But is it one that you can press and cross with? I don't think it is.
No, this is just a traffic signal. This isn't a crosswalk
it's
improvement.
hanging.
This is the
Right.
traffic, the actual hanging lights and the,
Right, so what are we gonna have for people crossing there? Because they're gonna cross there, right?
well, that's included in the scope of work,
That is.
but the
so-
traffic signal is not. The
Gotcha.
pedestrian
Okay.
crossing,
That's what I
What's
missed, though.
existing there is not part of the.
yeah,
scope of work.
those traffic signalization projects can be six
Okay.
figures just in of themselves in the scope.
So there will be something for the crossing,
Yes.
it's just the traffic
Yeah,
signal.
they're gonna
is
redo the
not-
crossing.
Is gonna stay the same.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Correct.
Another one that I'm happy to see come to fruition.
Yeah, this is, I'm excited to get this
So
turned
I
around.
don't have anything else. You don't have anything
That was it.
else? All those in favor?
Teresa A. Marsh, yes?
Chad Sexton Duranian, yes.
And so the last thing would be, and we kind of discussed this briefly at the last town meeting, the town voted to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter in a contract with Select Energy to put the canopy up at the police station. I would just request that the board vote to authorize me to sign any documents that I need to sign to go forward with that lease.
So more,
Second. Discussion? That's just the next step, right?
Yeah, it's just the,
That's all
just
it
the
is.
next step. We're moving forward. We're sending over some site plan documents and, get that turned around hopefully.
is the, situation on where the camera's gonna go, is that gonna be included in that discussion?
Yes.
That's all I have.
Okay. All those in favor?
Teresa A. Marsh, yes?
Chad Sexton Duranian, yes.
And I believe that's my portion. I'm out.
I'm out. 5.2, reports from board liaisons, general government.
So I've been, supposed to be liaison for the policy subcommittee, whatever they call that one, but I didn't hear about the meeting. That's my fault. I guess I should have paid greater attention. So I did miss the first meeting, but I caught up with a couple of the members, so I'll try to get in. I'll make sure I get back into the next meeting. The Energy Committee is the other one I'm following. That one, we actually, the chair for that committee had a one-to-one with me and, actually with Eric, and invited me to come listen. They continue to do a lot of great work and they have got the additional funding, so for the green projects. They're gonna be sending a letter to the board. They have an idea, which I said we would address when it comes to the board, but just to give you a heads up, what they're thinking about is that, like, they can document that they've shown, or will get it audited, that they saved $100,000. Well, they like some of it. Then it's not a savings. That was my first thing, right? But to initiate other things that, like, if you say, okay, I saved 100,000, but if you give me 50,000 back, I can do something that will save us another 100,000. So that's how they're hoping to be able to see some of the work that they're doing, actually come back and be able to initiate some project. They're gonna write up a letter and whatever. To me, I think, like I said, I had some concerns about it, but I wouldn't speak to it as an individual. I just said I'd let you know. But I think, they're wondering, I said, that they really need to do work within the grants that they have and whatever. And two, we did explain, because they are very limited on grant writing resources, very happy now that they can take advantage of the grant writer that we hired in town. And that's the only two that I've been involved with.
I heard you didn't have any meetings with the elected board?
Right. I wish that was true. Honestly, there are times that I just like, I can't, I just can't. And I have to sit down and like zone out on TV. It's the amount of work that's going on in this town, to me, for such a small town, is quite staggering.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff a lot of good stuff that people are doing. Like I said, last night, I was, we did a lot of work with the water department. A lot of stuff going on over there. The cement flooring is in. They're gonna be having walls put up for the next week or so. So that's really coming along. I did want to report that the South, is it South Row Road? What's the road?
South Road.
Okay, that is going to be paved. That is one of the only ones that are going to get paved before the snow flies, only because per spec, you have to let the road settle. You have to let it sit for, I think he said 60 days, if I remember correctly. I can't remember what exactly the details were. But the concern was to get it paved before winter, and that section will be paved before winter. They're going to put binders on the other pieces, so they're a little bit smoother. But that looks like it's going really well. As also the piping that they put in, there's a whole process involved in that too. They have to pressurize it, they have to test it, they have to unpressurize it, pressurize it again, and then test it again. It's just this whole EPA thing that they're doing. but they're doing a second test, I think this week at some point. If that is a go, then they're gonna be opening up, which, the reason why I'm saying this is, this will probably alleviate some discoloration that people have been seeing over the past, 3-4 weeks since they've been doing the construction, so I think that would work out really well. They're also working on, they had their experts coming in and talk about their rates again to see where they were from the last time they came in, and they're doing a lot better. I will say that they are looking at the finer financial details to be able to reduce any increases that are coming in the water department. So I'm really impressed with what's going on there.
The work that they have to do, the trenches and then the pavement of the roads following, is that covered by their budget, the water department budget?
It's all part of the scope of work
Yeah,
that they're doing.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only thing that is not is that one piece that is on Cooperage Way. Is it Cooperage Way or the other one that we voted in town meeting?
But that's not part of the water part. Cooper
Yeah.
Way's the street,
the-
no.
It's
Harbor Trace and Cooperage is the side street.
It's a
Oh,
side
the side,
street down
I'm thinking
on
of a
there,
different
and
one.
we voted in town meeting to be able to pave that, and that's the only piece that's outside of what the water department is doing, but
Okay.
We voted to accept it. I think Jimmy was hoping that the apron that the water department was gonna do was gonna meet
yeah.
where the paving was done, so they didn't need a whole new paving,
Right.
but I don't know where they are
We'll
with
see,
that.
we'll see
Okay,
where that
thank you.
is. But it's the financial game of making sure that, money coming from here is gonna be paying here, and the extra is gonna go here, and it's a big juggling match. With their part-time accountant that's now there, Terry is really helping them out, getting that all straightened out.
Yeah.
But they're doing some great work in the water department. I'm very, very happy to report that. Outside of that, there's been, the Affordable Housing Trust is meeting. They're moving forward with the land that's been given to them. They're looking at forestry options. They have a 3 and a 5 year plan that really fits in with a lot of what you saw tonight in regards to the MBTA, meaning there have been parts of town that are the land that they have to build affordable housing is a need. It's a huge need, and it's all being worked out. But that committee is doing a great job, that committee is doing a great job with that. As far as the Affordable Housing Trust. The Housing Authority, I will say that I missed the last 2 meetings because it's on a Thursday night, and after doing all the meetings up to Thursday, I get out of work and I just don't want to talk to anybody, to be quite honest. So I know that they're still working on the options available. Things discussed are if the Affordable Housing Trust builds anything for an affordability, the Housing Authority would need to manage that, and it's discussing working between the two on what does that mean by managing. If you look at Atwood Acres and the other one that's Townsend Woods, they're being managed by an outside company, and because they're being managed from an outside company, Townsend residents don't take precedence in it. If the Housing Authority manages it, then we'd be able to be more in control of housing for our individuals here. I still think an elderly transitional housing is a unit that would be able to house somebody until they can actually get into Townsend Woods, I think is something that we really need to look at. And planning's going along, and zoning's going along, and all those others. But I'll add that we had 66 Bayberry Hill Road. It was going to be in the announcements or communications, but they did come to an agreement in regards to that. As far as the notice of decision that came out, which would be 5.4. Why does it say 5.4 there? Is there a reason why that says 5.4?
Should have been 5.3, I think.
5.3.
Yeah.
But that would be posted on both the planning board site and it'll be in our minutes too after that. And that's all I got. Public safety, we have no report from Amsterdam right now, so. I know that, in lieu of Joe being gone, I keep in communication with the police chief and the fire chief if there's anything going on, so.
Obviously, I do too.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's, the communication, as I said earlier, has been really, really good, and that's how we can keep things running smoothly, is to open communication. 5.4, next meeting, November 14th, 2023, is a special town meeting. What do we say for the time on that?
The special town meeting is at 7. I think we're talking about having a Board of Selectmen meeting.
At
Maybe
6
we'll-
before that?
Yeah, and I would, maybe 5:30, maybe 6. I mean, it depends on what happens between now and then,
Okay,
as to whether or not that needs to go forward.
okay.
But we can discuss the specific time.
I'd also, if you could, talk with Jessica as far as what she needs for equipment, so that I can arrange that with TCAM. We'll probably get use the large screen in there and set it up like we have before in the past.
Yep.
And then we can run from there.
Okay.
All right, 5.5, I'll entertain a motion to review and sign payroll and bills payable warrants out of session.
So moved.
Second, any discussion on that? All those in favor?
Teresa A. Marsh, yes?
Chaz Sexton Duranian, yes. And 6.1, I'll entertain a motion to enter into executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, the water superintendent, and adjourn from there.
So moved.
No second. All those in favor?
Teresa A. Marsh, yes?
Chaz Sexton Duranian, yes. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.